There are a lot of different ways to play Skyrim. Shouts, magic, axes, swords, bows, arrows, and probably more. The game is far from perfect though. Some people use exploits to become absurdly powerful, but there are things you can do with the glitches present in the game besides becoming a god. For instance, you could do the opposite. Can you beat Skyrim with your hands bound? About 3 seconds into the game, as the cart started doing flips, I realized that I may have made a mistake. We rode into town, the children pointed and laughed at the stupid horse that didn't even know how to pull a cart properly, and we all took our places in line. Lokir of Rorikstead handled his name being called with unparalleled sophistication and grace. The guards asked me a pretty existential question, and I had to choose something that ultimately didn't matter: my race. I chose a Khajiit because they have a +10 to sneak right off the bat, and I figured I'd be sneaking quite a bit. And because I haven't chose them as my race in any of these videos yet. I struggled with my name for a while. After playing Cards Against Humanity for almost 6 hours yesterday, I was out of puns, so I just named myself Cat. If nothing else, when people refer to me as Cat, I can pretend that they're saying my name. I went to the chopping block, Alduin arrived, and it was time to get serious. The biggest and most immediate problem is escaping Helgen with your hands bound. My first instinct was to abuse Skyrim's twisted landscapes to hop onto some object and hopefully propel myself over something and onto something else until I somehow managed to get into a position where I can glitch myself out of the town. But Bethesda actually did good here. Unlike Fallout 3, where it's all but trivial to escape the vault as a baby or a child, it's next to impossible to escape Helgen without doing what you're supposed to do. The reason it's so difficult is that they chose the smart and easy option, rather than making it so the debris itself is blocking your path by using absurd amounts of it, which would open them up to people finding the smallest window of opportunity to jump their way to some place that you're not supposed to be. They basically use the destruction as a reason to place invisible walls around everything they don't want you jumping on. This sucks for those of us who build Lego towers just so we can swing a bat at them as hard as we can to watch it crumble, but it makes sense for the game. I couldn't go into Helgen Keep because you get your hands cut free almost immediately, and there are no opportunities to escape from within the building without losing your restraints. It must be done outside. After flinging myself face first into more wood than your mind can possibly comprehend, my imagination ran dry, and I resorted to the internet for help. As luck would have it, there is a way to escape Helgen with your hands still bound, and it effectively comes down to luck as to whether it works or not. There's a very small gap on the left side of this gate, far too small to crawl through while crouching. To escape, all you have to do is get Alduin to blast you with a shout. This renders you completely flaccid, and your body ragdolls a bit. If you're exceptionally lucky and you align yourself just right, enough of your body will slide under that gap in the gate, and when you stand up, you'll be on the other side. I can't verify what I'm about to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. You want to get to that gate as quickly as possible from the time you have control of your character. If you wait too long or you get too close to the keep with Hadvar or the other losers, Alduin will never land where you need him to. He'll just keep flying around and will land by the keep to attack the people over there. No matter what you try with the cabbage cart, you won't be able to escape. The best thing to do is to save often until you get him to land near you and the gate so that you can keep reloading a save over and over again until it works. It took at least a dozen attempts and more than half an hour of trying various things, but I escaped Helgen with my hands bound. The question now becomes, what the hell do I do? In case you hadn't figured it out already, there are several humongous drawbacks to being outside Helgen with your hands still bound. You can't open your menu, the one where you access skills, items, magic, and the map. That eliminates all weapons, armor, fast travel, leveling up, pretty much any form of self-defense or means of defending yourself. You also can't, for some reason, open any doors. Think about that one for a second. You can't open any doors. Think about how many things that eliminates from the game. I wasn't really sure where to go or what to do to see about advancing the story. I was too lazy to look up a map of Skyrim, and my memory isn't the greatest. I couldn't remember exactly where other large cities were in relation to Helgen, so I picked a direction and started walking. I thought if I got to the top of a mountain, I could see something worth seeing and my destination would reveal itself. That sort of worked, as I soon found myself upon the 7,000 steps leading up to High Hrothgar. I avoided the troll because it's unfriendly enough in a normal playthrough. I feared it might get a weird idea if he saw a defenseless kitty with its hands bound. I also noticed that the path to High Hrothgar was more windy and snowy than it usually is. As I expected, I couldn't get inside, But there is a way into the courtyard that doesn't involve any doors. All it takes is a ridiculously dangerous mountain climbing adventure, and you can see what you're not supposed to see. One of the masters was observing the world from above his temple. As I approached him, he fell through the sky. I went to check on him, but he was nowhere to be found. The other old guy I encountered gave me a weird look and said nothing. High Hrothgar was a complete waste of time, but I'd be a fool to not discover the throat of the world. How many people have been dumb enough to not only make it to High Hrothgar with their hands bound, but to make it to the throat of the world as well? I got around the first patch of wind easily enough. There weren't very many more on the way up the mountain. Only one, actually, that I had to circle around the entire other side of the mountain to avoid. It wasn't long before I made it to the throat of the world. As I expected, Parthenax wasn't there, and I couldn't absorb the word of power from the wall, because there was no dragon to flip the switch for me. For no reason other than to waste more time, I went up to the very top of the mountain to take a look at the notched pickaxe and to think about where to go next. I was almost out of ideas, but I did have one last trick up my sleeve, a long shot that would most likely be a colossal failure. Sometimes it's the shot in the dark that scores the winning point. That's how sports work, I think. Off in the distance, on the eastern border of what does and doesn't exist, is my destination. The first task was to make it down the mountain in one piece. I almost roadrunnered myself off a cliff, then I actually did it and died. The second time I avoided it and, this happened. It was a weird glitch. I was running in place. I'm not entirely sure what caused it. I made my way down the mountain, crossed the bridge to town, and... that's a little weird. After it happened a third time, I thought it had something to do with fast travel. I couldn't press A to do anything, so maybe the "you can now fast travel" box pops up, and because I couldn't press A, it breaks the game. I avoided the town, and some asshole in an F-150 turned their brights on. This was the first of many visual oddities that would befall my adventure. It happened again just down the road, and to be honest, it was a little unsettling. I pushed onward and discovered Nilheim, which put a nail in my fast travel glitch coffin. This guy looked at me funny, so I knocked his cart off a mountain and went about my business of certain failure. I could hardly read the sign I found, but barely made out that Whiterun is that way, and as luck would have it, that's the way I'm going, now at least. Two word I can't pronounce warriors almost abducted the wrong woman, and things got even weirder. The sky was disturbingly bright as I entered the sacred potato patch. It might have been Nirnroot and not potatoes. With everything else going on, I just assumed they were potatoes. Either way, it wouldn't explain what the hell was going on with the sky, or why the fog was almost blinding. Not long ago, back when I saw that sign, I decided that Whiterun was where I was going. But as I slowly came to the realization that all this glowing in the air might be radiation, I realized the fatal flaw in my plan. Even if I could get to Whiterun, there's no reason to assume that I'll be able to get in. That fast travel glitch, or whatever it was, will most likely strike again as soon as I get anywhere near the city. So, I was back to my last idea. I might as well tell you what that is, no point in hiding it anymore. I'm going to Skuldafn. Stop laughing. There's nowhere else where any other idea could possibly work. I pulled up a map of Skyrim and didn't find Skuldafn because I couldn't get the blue glowing fog out of my eyes. But on a different site, I saw that Skuldafn is located on the eastern side of the map, along the mountains, sort of southeast of Windhelm. It shouldn't work. It can't work because you physically can't get to Skuldafn from the mountains, but there is a sliver of hope. I wasn't entirely sure where I was, but the fog was less blinding than it was a few minutes ago, so I figured northeast would be a good starting point. Closer to Riften, I discovered another location that locks up the game. Only certain locations trigger it. Merryweather Farm was fine, but Riften Stables wasn't. This is sort of like playing The Floor is Lava, but you can't see the lava, and instead of burning to death, you turn into a vegetable. Good news, the mist has returned. Soon enough, I managed to escape the forest unscathed, and arrived at the mountain range to begin my search for an entrance to a temple that doesn't exist at the moment. Once again, I didn't know where I was or what I was looking for, so I went as far east as my legs would take me and headed north. Quicker than I expected, I ran into the edge of the world. I turned around and went the opposite direction. Not long later, I hit the eastern edge of the world. The entrance to Skuldafn can only be due south from where I am. As soon as the day turned to night, the traumatizing glow lifted from the air, and I could look at my monitor without wearing my gamer goggles. Then it hit me. The true extent of my failure washed over me. I did not find Skuldafn. What I did find, though, was the southeastern corner of the map. My shot in the dark faded away into the skybox. There were no options left. You can't talk to any NPCs, you can't even get into any of the major cities in the first place without the game breaking. My idea was that you somehow get this Goldoffin and jump into the portal to Sovngarde after making your way around the temple, which you probably can't do in the first place. Not that it would matter, because in order to fight Alduin, you have to enter the Hall of Valor, which you can't do because you can't use any fucking doors. I knew I was defeated. For no reason other than to try to think of any possible ideas, I wandered through the wind and rain until I found a glimmer of hope. Then, a frightened woman ran up to me and spoke to me, and I could actually talk back. It changed nothing. I kept going towards nothing, but I had to know how horrible my idea truly was. If, hypothetically, I managed to get this Goldoffin, how far would I be able to get? There's a console command that lets you teleport to certain cells in the game. For example, entering COC Whiterun Dragon's Reach Jarl Quarters would take you to the Jarl's Quarters in Dragon's Reach. Goldoffin has 4 different cells you can teleport to. I'll just tell you now that all 4 are indoors and are effectively worthless because doors. I then tried one last thing, just to see what would have happened if the stars had aligned and everything worked as I imagined it would have, back when I was riding that cart towards Helgen. COC Sovngarde Start takes you to where you spawn after you enter the portal to Sovngarde, and the location glitch happens there. Cool. So, to finally answer the question, you cannot beat Skyrim with your hands bound. And that's going to do it for this video about whether or not you can beat Skyrim with your hands bound. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything. Join the Mitten Squad Discord server through a link in the video description. Follow me on Twitter @Mitten Squad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. Have a wonderful day.